So that time has come again where I'm going to be guessing the final AFL ladder. Who makes the top 8? Who makes the finals? 2 rounds left, 2 rounds to go, everything to play for. As you can see here, teams from all the way down to Gold Coast, all the way up to Carlton can make the 8. Carlton can drop out all the way to Bulldogs. So look, it is just as good as a top 8 can get, as good as a race for the finals as get. And we're going to go through the last 18 games and then go to the finals as well. So I did this earlier on in the season, so it'll be interesting to see how things have changed. First off, Collingwood will beat Brisbane. I just think, despite the injuries, I know that Darcy Moore's out, but Danaher doesn't scare me. Easy win there. Richmond, Cochin, Jack Rewalt's final game, they'll be winning that by a fair margin. This game is hard because, will Carlton's run come to a close? Are Gold Coast capable of getting a result at home? I am going to go with Carlton comfortably. For these last 2 rounds, it's very much, if you're sort of torn between who's going to win, you just got to choose the better team with the better list, the better coach, things like that, right? So that's sort of my perception on picking these. I mean, obviously injuries come to account. Like you could, for example, Collingwood have a vast number of injuries to key players at the moment, and obviously form as well comes into play. We have got GWS and Essendon. Essendon, I could see them getting a result here because it's just Essendon. But I will be siding towards GWS given the home ground advantage. Once again, upsets happen. This could be one of the upsets. We'll just go by 19 points there. GWS are now in the 8. This game is massive for the top 8. You would think that only one of the 2 make it, given that Carlton are likely to make it and maybe another one. But who knows? Maybe they both make it. It's really hard. I am going to go with Geelong away from home. When push comes to shove, I trust Geelong more than St Kilda. And I don't trust either of these teams this year, particularly St Kilda. But I think Geelong have the talent. I've got the list, I've got the experience, and I back them in. Not by much though, just by a little bit. The Jordan Dawson Cup, Adelaide, Sydney. This is another cracking game. You would also think only one of these 2 teams makes the 8 because of a result like this. Someone's going to miss out on points. Adelaide, you would think, need to win this to make the 8. Sydney, it's not a requirement for them to win given they have that draw. I think just the home ground that Adelaide are too strong despite Sydney's form. But Adelaide are getting good once again. So we'll go with them by 23 points. This is a pretty trivial game. The Dogs by 78. As many points as we can go. This is another trivial game. Melbourne will win by a fair margin. Fremantle, it's a hard one because I don't trust Port Adelaide, but they should be getting the job done. Just. Fremantle are looking alright at the moment. Big game. Now, I am going to go with Essendon here, and I've been debating this a lot. I just feel like Essendon will win the rematch, given they lost for the Anzac Day game. Last quarter, they got overrun by a very good Collingwood side. I just think they're going to make that back. They're going to have revenge on their minds, and when I think about how the game pans out, I just think Essendon will get over the line very narrowly. It doesn't even bring them to the 8 anyway. I just back Essendon in to win that game. I mean, they can still make the 8 if the 3 teams above them lose by a significant margin, particularly the Dogs. But you would think Essendon's time in the 8, or their chance of making the finals, are now gone. Fremantle, I think they're going to be beaten by Hawthorn. They're good late season every year for some reason. You would think... I'm going to go with North Melbourne. Why not? I think Gold Coast have just lost it. So let's go with North, which means Gold Coast, Fremantle are out. Richmond are officially out. It's only Adelaide who can make it, as well as Sydney, Geelong. So we'll go with Brisbane here. I think Brisbane are going to demolish the Saints. The St Kilda are still in the 8 right now, with a not great percentage. GWS the same. Their percentage less than 100, just not ideal. I mean, late season percentage is really important. This game has to be the decider. It has to be everything. This is the game that I cannot predict. Dinia Park, Geelong haven't been strong at this year, so the home ground advantage is not as strong as some people may think. However, given the form recently, the inconsistency of the Dogs is relatively similar to that of the Cats. Both teams are just inconsistent. When you think they'll win, they lose. When you think they'll lose, they win. It's really hard to predict. I'm going off the basis that I trust Scott more than Beveridge. Luke Beveridge, I think, when push comes to shove, he's not it. Or at least he's not as it as Chris Scott is. Geelong wins. So Geelong, 2 very hard games. St Kilda and the Dogs, I predicted them to win both of those. Now, we have got a game that is really dangerous. Now, if Adelaide win this, if my maths are correct, they jump up to 7th place. If they lose, they don't make the 8s. You just don't know. Final game for West Coast. You will be be going Adelaide by maybe 25 points. I feel like they'll start winning the game easily and just rest a couple players. But Adelaide are in the 8 now, which is crazy because they were pretty low down a couple weeks ago. I think Port Adelaide are going to absolutely tip over Richmond 70 odd points, which means now Port Adelaide jump into second place. This is another big game. Wow. It looks like if Sydney win this game, they jump up to 10-1. They jump up to 7th place, assuming they don't win by a colossal amount and overtake Geelong's percentage. So, to finish 7th place, Sydney have to win. In the 8 finals, Sydney and Adelaide have to win this final game, assuming that the week before goes according to plan. I am going to predict a Sydney win. I think Melbourne, you can even see there, they can't make top 4. Okay? Sorry, they can't make top 2, not top 4. What the fuck am I talking about? If you can't make top 2, they probably might mentally in their heads have slowed down for this last round, given it's not to play for a home ground advantage. For that first final, I'm going to go with Sydney. And I'm going to go them relatively convincingly. I know 13 points doesn't seem like much, but in the grand scheme of things, it is. And then we have got arguably the game of the season. It shapes everything. GWS, if they win, they make the 8. Carlton lose, they still make the 8. So there's not much jeopardy there. I wish there was more jeopardy. You know, they're both fighting for the 8. This would be a game for the ages. For a long time, the last couple of weeks, this game has been chosen as the game, you know, the game to look forward to, the game that decides it all. However, unfortunately for GWS, they've dropped off a bit too much. And I think given their form, I do back the Blues in. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my top 8. The only thing is percentage between Adelaide in 8th place all the way down to Essendon. So realistically, especially Adelaide and the Dogs, you know, those two there, 5% between the two, but you just think, I actually went with Adelaide to Adelaide to beat West Coast, not by a big margin. You know, they could beat West Coast by 100 points. So you would think percentage won't be an issue for Adelaide if they are to sort of rely on percentage to defeat other teams. I think that's fair. I think Dogs St Kilda, they're too inconsistent. They honestly don't deserve it. It's a shame for GWS because they were looking so likely for so long. I feel like this is a pretty, a nice list. It's a lighter, that is. I feel like it represents the teams well. Yeah, I wouldn't be too mad about that. Now, if we scroll down a bit here, we will have my finals predictions, that is. We're going to go through each of the finals and predict them. Starting off with our first final. Both get a second chance if they lose, so it's not a problem. You would think Collingwood are too strong. Collingwood just seem to have the wood over Melbourne in recent years at least, and especially this season. This is a big game. I do think Carlton come away with the win. I think Adelaide are young and they won't have that finals experience, unfortunately. The grand final rematch, this is shaped off very perfectly. You just know that Geelong will win. They have the wood over Sydney, and to be honest, for the longest time, apart from I think last year, most years there's always an upset in the first week of finals, right? And if I had to pick any of these 4 finals, it would be one of these last 2, Geelong, Swans, Port Adelaide, Brisbane. I'm going with Brisbane to win. Now, the reason being is I don't trust Port Adelaide fully. I mean, nor do I trust Brisbane as much. But I think Brisbane with that experience should come in with something to prove. And I just feel like despite Adelaide Oval being such a fortress for both Adelaide teams, you've seen Richmond beat Port Adelaide there in 2020, the prelims, the year after in the prelims, we saw the Dogs beat Port Adelaide there. So is it that much of a fortress in the finals at least? I'm not too sure about that. Coaches wise, I back Fagan over Hinkley. There's a bit of fragility there with Hinkley, at least tactically. I'm not talking about man management. Fagan, can he get the job done? I mean, Brisbane will be hoping they don't go out in straight sets like many times in their previous couple years. So I have gone with Brisbane there. Now, is that likely to happen? No. Then I'm going with a upset. I wanted to go with 1 upset this round. I could see this happening. Sydney with the form, the momentum. I do not see Carlton or Collingwood losing that first week, to be completely honest. Then we go to semi-final 1. This is big. This is really big. Now, by this time, Oliver will have been integrated back into the Melbourne lineup, so you would think injuries wouldn't play too big of a part here. Midfield for midfield is an absolute colossal battle. I think the forward line of Melbourne will struggle against the astute defense of Carlton, but I think Carlton's forward line will struggle against the astute defense of Melbourne. So this will be a very low-scoring game at the MCG, so it's not too big of a problem that it's Melbourne's home ground for Carlton. I am going to go with Carlton to lose. I've gone with Melbourne to win. They'll be too strong, and I think that experience will get them over the line. At least that's what I'm hoping for. Big game here. Big game. Does anyone go out straight sets? No. Geelong, I think they're weak, and I think Port Adelaide will pounce on them. Port Adelaide will win by a triumphant margin. As well, a little bit of revenge from previous years. And we've got ourselves a pretty boring top four. I don't see Sydney, Geelong, or Adelaide making the top four at the end of the year. The prelims, Carlton's the only one I see. Now, but obviously I've not gone for Carlton, I've gone for Melbourne. First prelim, I've gone with Collingwood. I think Collingwood have been destined to make the grand final since we've known that they're the best team. All year round they've been the best team. With the injuries, Moore and Dacos should be back by then, so they should get the job done against Port Adelaide. This is the big game, a really big game, because Brisbane can't win a prelim, it seems. I've gone Melbourne. I think Melbourne will win. I think the two teams that have a chance of going out straight sets are Melbourne and Port Adelaide, but then Melbourne's also the team I think is most likely to make the grand final, weirdly. I just think they're getting the players back at the right time, and out of these two, the grand final, what a big grand final this is. You just think the midfield of Melbourne, I think, is slightly better than Collingwood's on a big day X factor they've got. Look, Melbourne, they just need to sort out their forward line, or the tall forwards. Apart from that, I don't see much separating the two teams. I am going to go with Melbourne. I've gone with Melbourne to win. Obviously, that's not a home game for either team. Or it is at the G, which they both play at. But I've gone for Melbourne to win a flag. I tipped Melbourne at the start of the year before the games happened on my preseason predictions on TikTok. FTFooty, follow that. Have a listen there. Showing my ball knowledge, I went with Melbourne to win the flag, alright? And I'm going to stick with that, you know? This is a bit of stubbornness on my behalf, because I don't want Collingwood to win. I don't want Collingwood to win. Who does? No one fucking wants Collingwood to win. I go for Richmond. My nightmare is a Collingwood-Carlton grand final. I couldn't do it. I'd retire and move countries. But that is my top 8 I predicted there, and this is the final series. Now, let me know what your thoughts are. Who makes the finals? Who makes top 4, the prelims, and who wins the flag? Let me know in the comments. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure you like, subscribe, all that good stuff. As I said before, follow the TikTok FTFooty. 2 Ys? No, 1 Y? I don't know. You'll find it. Just hit 3,000 on there. So big ups to you. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll see you in another video.